And we'll get started today. Welcome everyone who's here. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be starting session 3 of Together Facing the Challenge, the use of effective parenting tools to enhance cooperation. And this is really the backbone of Together Facing the Challenge. Just a quick review of Monday's training. We completed sessions 1 and 2. Session 1 was building relationships and teaching cooperation, and session 2 was setting expectations. Now, in order to get credit for your Together Facing the Challenge, which is mandatory, you need to turn in your worksheets for each session. You can save those up and turn them in at the end after we're done on the 21st. You can either email those in to me or you can bring them into the office, and I'll just give you a quick review of what you need for sessions 1 and 2. So to get credit, you need activity 1C, activity 1D, activity 1D tracking behavior form. So that's a 2-part, that's 2 worksheets right there. The incentives list, activity 2E, which was choosing ineffective or effective instructions for children. Just pick 2 of those on page 2E and either reword them or tell why it's effective already. And then your house rules. Just make a list of house rules based on what you learned in session 2. And once we receive those, you earn credit for those sessions. All right, so let's get started for today. All right, the use of tools to enhance cooperation in our foster youth. Recognizing the role adults play in power struggles is key to coaching them on how to prevent and escape from one, as well as providing strategies for repairing the relationship once a power struggle has taken place. So we're going to be talking about button pushing today. We're going to be talking about power struggles. We're going to be right in the meat and potatoes of foster parenting. So here we go. This is just a review of what we learned last time, the power of praise and incentives, using a daily check-in, and using effective instructions and house rules that are clear and concise. Today, we're going to learn to recognize your involvement in power struggles. When we talk about your, we're talking about us as adults and how we contribute to those power struggles. Be able to prevent participating in power struggles, learn strategies to improve emotional awareness, learn strategies to diffuse a power struggle in progress, and understand how increased empathy to a youth's trauma can help avoid power struggles. All right, what is a power struggle? Well, let's take a look at one. James? James?
James,
What?
in 5 minutes, I want you to turn off the TV and go clean up your room.
Yeah.
5 minutes. James, your 5 minutes is up. Now, please go in and clean up your room.
What did you do that for?
I told you that you had 5 more minutes and then it would be time to clean up. 5 minutes is up.
I was watching my show.
Well, now it's time to clean. Now, here's your checklist as a reminder. Now get going. If you have any questions, you come back and find me to ask.
Okay.
I'll come and check on you in a minute. How's it going in here? James? James? I thought I asked you to clean up in here. James, I told you to start cleaning up your room right now.
I'm finishing my comic book first.
I don't give a damn about your comic book. You get off your lazy butt and start cleaning up this mess.
No,
You better start cleaning up right now.
it's my room and I can keep it like I want. Please, stop it. Quit that. You quit doing
Okay. What is a power struggle? So referring back to the video clip, what do you think this parent did well?
She gave him a timer.
She put
She
him on a
set him
timer.
on 5 minutes.
Mhm. Absolutely. Good choice. What do you think she could have done differently?
When she realized that he didn't clean his room, she got upset and reacted out of frustration.
Yeah. Once you started yelling, it's over. You've lost power. So absolutely, when she starts yelling, calling him lazy, that's never effective. Where do things break down? For this one, I would say it was really kind of right at the beginning. She did give him a time, but he was still engaged in what he was doing. The show wasn't over. And so she didn't have his attention. She wasn't really being respectful of what he was doing. So, maybe right there. But then when the yelling and the throwing and all of that, that's when it's really devolved. And when did she lose control of the situation? And again, once you start yelling, you've lost control. It's over. Done. Okay, so a working definition of power struggles. What is a power struggle? When you ask your child to do something and they refuse or are openly defiant, and you engage in a back and forth struggle to get the child to comply with your request. In other words, you get sucked into a negative interaction with the youth. So it's a two-way street right there for sure. And it takes two to be involved in a power struggle. So 4 key points. Conflicts are often triggered by minor incidents. Many conflicts begin with small behaviors, being off task, failing to follow directions promptly, or fairness issues. Adults rarely initiate conflict, but they often unintentionally respond in a way that feeds into it. During times of conflict, adults often don't use the skills that would serve them best. Just like kids, they don't act, they react. And sometimes we call these buttons, since people can push them and upset us. So we'll talk a little bit about button pushing. Okay, whether it's done intentionally or by accident, sometimes you can escalate a power struggle by pushing our buttons. Being able to identify and understand your hotspots is key to maintaining control of your emotions. So on page 29, that's activity 3B, button pushing in your worksheet packet. Let's just take a look at some of these and think about button pushing and getting upset and how we can avoid getting upset. So some of the tactics that youth use to push our buttons are saying things that seem disrespectful. You never let me do anything. You don't love me. I hate you. You're a liar. You're a jerk. You're mean. You're not my real father. My kids still tell me that. They're always telling me I'm not their father, which is awful. Anyway, yeah, I don't have to listen to you. A disgusted look, you know, sometimes when they just look at you funny, it can set you off. Finding parents' most vulnerable area and preying on it. I'm going to kill you, hurt myself, hurt others. And that's always concerning beyond being a button pushing tactic. I am going to lie, lie, lie. I hate school and I'm leaving this house. So those are some of the things that youth do to get under our skin and push our buttons. Some of the things adults do that push youth buttons, preaching or using cliches, talking in chapters and just going on and on and on. God, get it, geez, stop. Labeling, that was something that we saw in the video, is you're lazy, get off your butt. That's not nice. Futurizing, you know, if you don't clean your room, you're gonna grow up and be a slob. Questioning a teenager's restlessness and discontent, not tolerating any experimental behavior, and collecting criticisms. And that's something that can really trigger people. It's using past bad acts in a present situation. So, you know, if they did something the week before and you bring it up again, or you bring things up over and over, that can be button pushing for kids. All right, getting caught in the conflict cycle. When dealing with a conflict situation with kids placed in care, we often rely on our personal authority. The very tools that are effective with most children often do not work with kids in care because they are more likely to react than act in times of conflict. All right, so going back to our worksheet, let's think about some of your personal buttons, because we talked about this one, finding a parent's most vulnerable area and preying on it. So we're just going to take a second and be aware of some of those things that like emotionally set us off. So you don't have to share what yours are unless you're comfortable doing so. You know, for me, it really is when my kids talk back like that, when they tell me, you're not my dad, and they think they're so funny. And they're hilarious. But when I need them to do something and they're not cooperating, that really pushes my buttons. Like, you know, why doesn't anybody listen to me? Why is it only your dad that gets any attention or anything done? So just think about some of those things and kind of make a list of things that have maybe caused conflict in your own family. So we'll just take a couple of minutes and fill these in. And then if you're comfortable sharing, you can share. If not, you don't have to. We'll take about 2 minutes just to write a couple of things down.
Go ahead and do that.
right. Does everybody have a pretty good list? Things that get you emotionally triggered and you have a hard time controlling after that. Anybody feel like sharing?
It's not that I will respond negatively, but I don't like it when talk back or when they're loud, for no reason, unresponsiveness, speaking in a rude tone, saying I don't want to do whatever, not listening, uncooperation.
Yeah,
Those are for
absolutely.
me.
Those are some of mine too. One thing I wrote down was wasting time on stuff like that. That really bothers me. Like, I really need you to do this right now, or we need to go, and you're wasting time. That drives me nuts. And it's something that I'm easily dragged into conflict too, with just the time. And a lot of times, my kids will leave stuff around the house. That bugs me too. I like my house clean. And they'll be like, that's all you care about. You don't care about us. I'm like, yeah, I do. Put your crap away. So, it really does. It bugs me. So, yeah, them kids, I tell you. All right. So the more aware we are of our emotions and the things that really set us off, the better we can be about avoiding that conflict cycle or getting out of one if it starts. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So the conflict cycle is a model that explains why normal, reasonable parents sometimes behave in ways that are different from their personalities. So in other words, in times of conflict, foster parents often mirror kids' behaviors. Parents are the only ones who can end conflict. Kids aren't going to do it, and they don't have the power in the relationship to end it. So it is up to the adult to put a stop to it. So here we go, the conflict cycle. A stressful event occurs. With me, it's always, we're late for something because we always are. We're always late for something. A stressful event occurs. This activates a child's irrational belief. You don't love me. You're yelling at me to get in the car. These irrational beliefs trigger negative feelings. So naturally, my child is going to drag their feet and waste even more time. These negative feelings drive the behavior, and this behavior triggers the parent to react. Come on, come on, get moving, let's go. And then the parent's reaction is fed by the child, and you start to mirror each other, and the conflict escalates. This parent reaction restarts the conflict cycle, and then those irrational beliefs are reinforced. Oh, yes. She doesn't love me. She keeps yelling at me. It starts all over. So how do we put an end to it? Oh, this does work. I couldn't make it work yesterday. So there we go. That's what that conflict cycle looks like. So here's another example. Mario's sitting down and watching TV. There's a stressful event. His foster mother comes into the room and tells Mario that it's 4 p.m. Time to turn off the television and start his homework. Irrational, unhelpful, inaccurate beliefs. Mario thinks to himself, she doesn't treat her own kids this way. She treats me terribly. She's always picking on me and she doesn't like me. So that triggers a negative feeling. Mario starts getting angry because he feels like he's being mistreated. All right. He yells at his foster mother and tells her that he isn't going to do his homework and she can't make him. Well, that might be true. So the mirroring behavior is Mario's treatment of his foster mother as she raises her voice and tells him that he certainly is going to do his homework And then you better stop having a bad attitude. It's that attitude of yours that continues to get you in trouble. And then the cycle repeats, and those irrational beliefs are reinforced in the child. Maureen, you think I have a bad attitude? You're the one with the bad attitude. And so it creates these negative feelings. All right, so thoughts lead to feelings that lead to behaviors. That is what the triangle looks like. Okay. So how can we recognize what is going on and kind of hit the pause button in that conflict cycle? How can we help caregivers recognize internal signals and cues? So we want to monitor the physical and emotional cues by expressing feelings, identifying triggers, and normalizing feelings. Like, it's okay to feel this way. That happens, and saying that over and over can be really helpful. How can we help caregivers manage internal signals and cues? All right, breathing is always a good way to go. Deep belly breaths just automatically calm the body, and it's okay to just stop, take that break, and take a few deep breaths. Breathe in on 5, breathe out on 5, and do that 5 times. And you'll feel more calm. You might even come out of it like, what were we talking about? I don't remember, and it doesn't matter. So meditation and prayer can help. Playing a sport, drawing, music, talking to a person that you trust, reading, and taking a walk. So these are all ways to take care of yourself and recognize your own feelings, your own emotions, and be aware of what's going on so that you're not always in a tense, ready to, fight kind of mood. All right, here's those ABCs again. All right, so power struggles ABC. Let me think about this for a second. This is an activity that works a whole lot better if we're in person. So we're going to use a little bit of imagination and just think about it with ourselves, and I'll decide how we're going to turn it in and make it useful. But I kind of, give me a second with it. All right, so we know that the ABCs, the A is the antecedent, what happens before a behavior or before a conflict occurs in this session, in this case. The behavior you can see and or hear, and then the consequence, what happens after. So what started the power struggle? What did the other person do that pushed your buttons? When your button got pushed, what behavior did you exhibit that maintained the power struggle? And what feelings and or behaviors did the other person exhibit as a result of your behavior? Okay. So, on a piece of paper, maybe on the back of page 3B, think back on a power struggle that you may have had either with a child in your care or that you had maybe when you were a child, maybe with a partner. Just think about a power struggle that you've had and kind of write that down. What started it? What button got pushed to maintain it? And what happened afterwards? And you can make circles with this or however you want to do it, but just kind of think back and write about it. All right, I'm just going to share one really quick. And this happened probably 10 years ago when my son was a teenager. By the time he was 13, he was taller than me. And the day I realized that, I was telling him to do a chore, most likely, please do your dishes. And he was like, no, I'm not going to. And it turned into a back and forth. Yeah, you are. Please go do the dishes. And I probably didn't even say please. And no, I'm not. You can't make me. And it was, okay, well, go to your room. I don't want to see you right now. And he's like, no, I don't think I will. And he stands up. And I'm like, oh, crap. And that was like the day I realized, okay, what was working for me before is not going to work for me anymore because he's bigger than me. So the consequence of that was, well, first of all, I'm like, fine, I'm going to my room and then he'll be sorry. And he wasn't. But I did have to go and think about that a little bit, like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get this kid on my side? Because that's the only way that this is going to work out as a teenager, is if we're on the same page, because I can't be opposing, again, bigger than me. So from then on, it was more like anytime I needed to tell him something about concern, he had to sit down. And there were no raised voices or anything like that. It had to be very soft and quiet and reasonable, because that whole, I'm the mom and I'm in charge, that didn't work anymore. So it had to change. Here's another example. A child ignores the foster parent's second request to put his dirty dishes in the sink. Foster parent gets frustrated and yells, why don't you ever do what you're told? And the foster child feels ashamed. The parent is embarrassed for losing their temper, and the relationship is impacted. So that's another example of how this can look. Okay, so what can foster parents do to prevent or escape a power struggle? Recognize where you're at. Hopefully you can catch it before it even starts. Say or do nothing. Again, it is okay to just stop and breathe. Doing nothing is better than getting involved in a back and forth and thinking that you can win that, because you can't. Walk away. Take 5. Use natural or logical consequences. Avoid arguing, lecturing, or pushing buttons. Separate misbehavior from personal attacks. And again, hopefully you recognize it before it gets too far into that, because again, misbehavior and personal attacks can feel the same. And we'll discuss some additional strategies in detail. We'll talk about pre-teaching so that hopefully we can avoid the power struggle altogether. Pre-teaching can look like those house rules. It can look like those expectations that we were talking about in sessions 1 and 2, and formulating an atmosphere of cooperation in the home. So that's like that. Using iMessages to avoid blaming your foster youth, and using teachable moments. These can all help. So what is pre-teaching? So here's 4 pre-teaching guidelines. Be proactive, and that means getting to those struggles before they even begin. Set clear expectations. Set clear consequences for non-compliance, and we will talk more about that in session 4. Follow through with what you say. Always be consistent. All right, how to prevent power struggles. Your child asks you if you will take her to the mall. And I can't read that. Okay. On past outings to the mall, she has frequently bugged you to buy her lots of stuff. When you tell her no, she becomes very upset and uncooperative. So how can a foster parent use pre-teaching to prevent a power struggle from taking place? So we'll think about this just a little more in depth. This is where iMessages can come into play. In this situation, it would also be really helpful to let foster kids kind of know the budget and what that limit is. So setting limits, setting those boundaries again. So iMessages can help as well to de-escalate conflict, break the conflict cycle, turn blame into personal responsibility for one's own feelings, whereas messages escalate conflict and make the other one feel like they're being attacked. Okay, so the emotion, I feel the situation when, the explanation because, and then the resolution, and I would like to explain what you'd like to have happen instead. All right, so in this situation, I feel upset when we go to the mall and you ask, and it's time to buy a lot of stuff because there's limits to the budget. And I would like to stay within the budget so that we all have enough for the household to run properly. Something like that. Okay, how to prevent or escape a power struggle by using iMessages. How are these messages different? You need to be quiet, stop arguing, and pay attention, or you will make us late. Okay, so using an iMessage instead, I feel stressed when I'm talked over because it hurts our relationship, and I would like us to communicate better so we can be on time. So that takes it from blaming kids to, I'm feeling this way, so we need to cooperate. Let us communicate better. It's a nice way to do it. Try transforming these messages into iMessages. You better start paying attention. Can't you see what a mess your room is? Why do you always interrupt me when I'm talking? So take about, this should only take about 2 minutes, and just pick one of these 3 and write an iMessage on the top of activity 3D, where it says processing removed. You can either use the top or the bottom, but just write an iMessage out of one of these. Okay, this one takes a little bit of practice, and I don't know why, but every time we do this exercise, I pick number 2, and I can't, it's always a challenge not putting a U in there. So it always comes out of something like, I feel stressed when your room is a mess because we can't find what you need. And I don't know if that's a total iMessage or not, if you can't leave the U out of there, but I keep trying every time. But there are ways to make these just a little softer and decrease the conflict. And these are certainly common conflict triggers, like paying attention, being respectful, cleaning up after oneself. It takes a lot of practice. Something, some people just don't get the hang of it until they're in their 30s and interrupting people when they're talking. So just some common themes. All right, so how to prevent a power struggle by using teachable moments. This looks a lot like a bell curve. So when you're at the bottom of this bell curve, on either side is when you have your teachable moments. When a parent makes a request, the child doesn't mind, the parent nags, it's starting to escalate, the child argues and whines, the parent lectures more, the child screams and yells and has a tantrum, so the parent yells and screams and has a tantrum. The child feels remorseful and ashamed, and it's starting to devolve into bad feelings. Parents forgive or give in, and then you have a teaching moment on the other side. So let's take a look at what that looks like a little bit more. At the beginning and at the end of a power struggle is when you're most likely to either prevent it or use the power struggle to apologize and talk about what you can do differently the next time a power struggle occurs, because of course, every relationship, there's going to be some sort of power struggle. So be proactive. Remember that no matter how proactive you are, power struggles will still occur because your buttons will get pushed. Use proactive strategies already discussed, ABCs, praise, effective instructions, parenting consistency, teachable moments, iMessages, and pre-teaching. Use proactive strategies to be discussed later. We'll talk about behavior contracts, effective consequences in session 4, and managing parenting stress. The less stressed you are, the fewer buttons you'll have to be pushed. So after the power struggle is over, using that teachable moment to repair and restore the relationship can be really important. If you weren't able to prevent it and you weren't able to stop it after it escalates, apologize for letting your buttons get pushed and or pushing their buttons. Use an I statement to describe how you felt. Coach, encourage your child to use an I statement to describe how they felt so that they can get that feeling out there and it's not festering. And then make a plan that includes how you will respond next time during the power struggle and one proactive strategy to put in place to prevent future power struggles, such as the pre-teaching or an effective behavior contract. You can also remind the youth of the initial behavior issue, the antecedent. So if it's not listening, if it's not picking up their clothes, if it's not paying attention, those behaviors still need to be addressed. It still needs to be resolved. Engage youth in a simple problem-solving consequence to process. What behavior did you exhibit in the beginning? What could you have done differently? And state what the logical or natural consequence will be for the child's initial behavior. We'll talk about natural consequences and logical consequences. Follow through with consequences. After the power struggle is over, re-energize yourself and the child. So strategies for re-energizing yourself and your child. Do whatever calms or refreshes you. Allow your child to recharge him or herself. Do whatever calms or refreshes him or her. Let it go. It's over. It's resolved. Once it's resolved, and we're not going to use that in the next power struggle as ammunition to push more buttons. Fully forgive yourself and the child, and don't bring it up in future situations. It's done. Okay. So again, this activity is really better used in person. In fact, this whole training really is designed to be done in person, so it doesn't come across very well. We're doing our best. We're doing our best. So thinking back to the power struggle that you wrote down earlier, the ABC. Just think about, what strategy or strategies you could use to prevent this power struggle. What would you do to repair the relationship following a power struggle? What would you do to re-energize? What do you think, do you think the parents' buttons got pushed? Do you think the parents also pushed the child's buttons? So the one that I'd like you to focus on your sheet, on your ABC, if you wrote on the back or wherever you wrote it down, I think this is something that we don't talk about really enough, is what you would do to re-energize, what you would do to come back from it and kind of be whole again after it. So think about some re-energizing strategies and maybe write one or two of those down. All right, and hopefully we're able to come up with some things. Some of the things I wrote down were, hugs, maybe going out for a walk, either together or separately, maybe some time apart for just a bit, for thinking and breathing, whatever you think would work. Be sure to write those down, some re-energizing strategies following a power struggle. I think that'll satisfy that little requirement. That'll work out great. All right, this is kind of a long video, so buckle in. It's also kind of sad. If you've seen it before, if you haven't, this one can be a little sad. So if you need to take a break from it, if you need to talk to anybody about it afterwards, to process feelings or whatever you need to do, fortunately, we're not all together in a room for this one. It's not necessarily violent, but it's kind of tough to watch. So just do whatever you have to do, but we are going to talk about it, and there's a worksheet that goes along with it. So we're going to do our best with it. But yeah, if it does bother you to the extent that you have a hard time watching it, just take a break. And let me see what I have to do to share it. Let's see.
It's hard to believe that Mint Mobile can be good at just $15 a month. So as Mint's new owner, I brought in.
Okay, are you guys able to see that and hear it? Or do I need to share this screen? guys?
It's better to share the screen. We don't see anything.
Okay, thank you. All right, do you guys see Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
Okay, he's not the foster child in this video.
Then one of our first.
You guys see the little blonde girl?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is our video.
Sometimes someone hurts you so bad. It stops hurting at all. Until something makes you feel good. It all comes back. Every word. Every hurt. Every moment. How could you ever understand where it comes from? Even if you ask, even if you listen, you're not really hear or see or feel. You don't remember my story. You haven't walked my path. You haven't seen what I've seen. My past defines me. This is who I am. I am unseen, unheard, unwanted. That is what I am. If even I am, let's say. Seemed like the same thing that held me up, forced me down. The world turned upside down, and order disappeared. Nothing is how it's supposed to be. And a heavy sadness filled my soul. Deeper and deeper I fell within myself. And nothing could draw me out. Trapped in the misery of my life. Lost in the sorrow of my soul. Unable to see the light. Unable to see the dawn. To dream. And I found the darkest days of my life kept coming. Blackest nights of my soul never stopped. It seemed like it was always nighttime and nightmares, and never morning. It made me wonder why. But mostly I tried not to think about it. And try to get by. And try to survive. And all the other stuff seemed so much like nothing compared to just wanting the most important things back again. Like wishing you could see your mom's smile again. And hear her sing that one favorite song. Hunting down. And things were all messed up. Or if you couldn't have her back, at least get to take care of your baby brother. Because you know he needs you. He's gonna be so scared all alone. And who's gonna hold his hand and whisper it'll be alright to him? And who will whisper it to me? I know I am helpless, dependent, desperate. But what happens when those you need the most threaten your very existence? I've heard plenty of promises, and they all sound the same. It was hard enough, and sooner or later, they all prove to be empty. The sun comes up every morning, but do you know where? Each place it's somewhere different. It's hard to find east when you keep moving around, but at least it comes. It always comes. I've come to depend on that. And slowly seasons changed around. And it seemed this time that maybe the world would not be pulled out from under me again. Feet safe, roots starting to grow. Little buds of hope formed. Slowly attempting to trust this new life.
Whatever, I can take what I got for you.
someone and tell me it's gonna be okay. That one day, maybe, I'll feel normal. And I won't always be the one. Then I'll have a mommy who will hug me and be strong for me. Maybe I can't do it all by myself. This, my past, my history, my story, is not my fault. It's not because of me. It doesn't have to be what defines my future. I am lovable. I am worthy of care. And that glimmer of light, it makes all the difference. The glimmers of light give me hope that someday my summer will come.
We can watch part 2 because it really does help you not be so sad because she ends up okay, everybody.
I've seen this part 1 a few times, and I didn't know that there was a part 2 until the sidebar. So I would love to watch part 2, but if you don't want to, I could do it on my own time. It's fine.
There is a part 2, and these videos are available on YouTube. In fact, I'll share them. I'll send you the link on my YouTube channel, so that
Okay.
you have it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
there's actually 2 more that you might like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
So,
that's nice.
well, yeah. She turns out okay. She does. It's great. All because she had a good foster mom who helped her. All right. So, do we need a break? Because we're almost done. If we want to keep going, we can just finish it up and finish a good 45.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yes, break or yes, finish?
Yes, we can finish.
Okay. How are you doing, Ted? You okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll just finish up. Processing removed. Thinking about the power struggles that were in the video, what did you see? It started pretty early on. with the power struggles, especially when she was taken from her family home and placed in a foster family. Those behaviors were pretty hard. I mean, as a foster parent, I would have a hard time if a kid, destroyed my record player, if I had one, hadn't seen one of those in a long time. But, property damage, that's pretty bad. There was a power struggle right in there where she threw that over the fence. So the foster family, takes her, holds her down, puts her in a shower. Oh my gosh, don't ever do that. That is not okay. But that is a power struggle. Then we see it again when she's removed from that foster family and placed with her last foster mom. She takes the book, rips it up, throws it. But we can see that foster mom just doesn't even engage. She's just like, well, all right. That's hard to take, but she absolutely does not engage in a power struggle. So those are just a couple of examples in there. And if you saw more, you can write those down on your worksheet for processing removed. What power struggles did you see and how effective were the adults in avoiding them? So that first foster family, not effective at all. Very bad. Getting their license taken away. If anybody sees that, absolutely. And then that last foster mom who handled it expertly well. And not an easy thing to do. Zoe, our foster child, had all kinds of triggers that were coming up. And the biggest one that we saw in the movie was the dress. This kid had experienced violence before, came from a police situation where she was taken from her home, listened to her dad yelling and threatening to kill her mother over a dress. And then when she's given a dress, she loses it. So that's definitely a trigger. You also see that part of her whole identity is taking care of her little brother. So that's a trigger for her. Just the thoughts that are rolling around in her head, because this whole video clip is an internal monologue of her trauma and how she is feeling about it. Just a continual nightmare, as she describes it. Never a summer, nothing. So constant sort of sadness and living under that trauma. That will create all kinds of triggers, and the kinds of triggers that are landmines, because as a foster parent, you don't know necessarily what's going to trigger foster kids. So you just kind of have to be emotionally aware that that is a really hard thing that is happening for them, and be extremely sensitive and not mirror that behavior, because it doesn't have anything to do with you. It really doesn't. And we're better off just thinking, how can we help? How can we help? Because we don't know what good action it will be that will turn it all around and really make a difference. Just like in this movie. And like you said, Sam, I don't know how many times I've seen this clip, and I haven't been doing this for very long, but I've seen this clip a lot because it does really show what our foster kids have been through and how foster parents make a difference when they're doing their job correctly. So definitely a lot of buttons that our foster kids have. Zoe's invisible suitcase. How would you help repack this suitcase? What would you do to help her so that she can concentrate on other things? In the video, she talks about how everything else is nothing, and it's this trauma that she can't get her mind off of that is just fully occupying her mind. And she feels worthless. She feels like she's nothing. One thing to point out is that she's constantly dragging that trash bag along with her. And that's how she feels, like she is garbage. She's nothing to anybody. how do you help a kid repack that suitcase so that they feel worthy, so that they feel warm and comfortable, so that they can focus on other things besides what they've been through and what has happened, so that those experiences are not the definition. How do you redefine a kid who's had those experiences?
It takes a lot of time having patience. That's why the last foster mom in the end would be the one to be very successful with her, because it takes a lot of patience. Because I feel like for a child like Zoe, it's going to be a lot of backlash for a very long time. Due to the mistrust that she has. So it really has to take a parent who's willing to not engage in those power struggles and just offer up that patience.
Absolutely.
So she can open up.
It may take a long time. And so that patience is absolutely the most important ingredient to being a foster parent and helping children cultivate better feelings about themselves so that they can move on and move past what they've been through. Repack that suitcase for sure. All right, and the last question on the worksheet is, what did you see that was hopeful or healing in the video? We saw that, you know, towards the end there, she's starting to grow roots. She talks about feeling like she's gaining more trust. She's coming around. And that's really one of those things that you would write down in there. And of course, when the foster mother, you know, when you're watching this for the first time, you're thinking, oh, she must be calling to have her removed again. She must be, you know, that was the last straw. But instead, she knew Zoe well enough to know that what she needed was to see her brother and to feel a connection to her past and to her family. So being tuned in and knowing your foster kids is really important. To be authentic with them. And I think that those are the things that this foster parent showed in this video. Any other ideas about what was helpful or healing in this video?
I didn't hear your last question.
Oh, I was just saying, is there anything else that you saw that was hopeful or healing in the video?
Oh no, you said everything.
Okay. So those are just some things to write down. If you have other thoughts, please share them on this worksheet. And I'd just like to note that our worksheets are a little bit out of order, the way mine printed anyway. 3C, that worksheet is after 3E, and there's some I messages in here. So, I mean, we didn't have to write on the back of that one page. That's something that you can fill in there and turn in with your worksheets for credit, or you can turn in what you did. That's fine too. But they are here. And these are the ones that will be required for credit for these sessions. Let me go through them really quick with you. I will be asking for activity 3B, pushing buttons or button pushing. Activity 3C, which is out of order, it's after the removed worksheet. And the iMessages worksheet, it's page 36. And then the 3D, processing removed. And that's what you'll need for session 3 to get credit. All right, do you guys have any questions?
No.
Okay, I'll post this recording on my YouTube channel. I'll also, I'll send you the link for Remove 2, and then there's another one that's really good too that you might like, that doesn't leave you feeling quite so, oh my gosh, I need to go take a break. And then if you have any questions, just let me know. Our next session is on the 14th at 10 o'clock. We will be talking about implementing effective consequences, and we're about halfway through. So thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you.
See you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
See you next time. Okay.